It was a welcome change from the sweltering summer heat of Brighton, Massachusetts. He stood on the sidelines of Lily's soccer game, a thermos of hot cocoa in his hand, his eyes fixed on his daughter. Lily, all of 7 years old, was a whirlwind of energy, her bright red hair bouncing as she chased the ball. He smiled. Those moments, watching Lily thrive, were the highlights of his life. Being a cop was a tough job, demanding long hours and often exposing him to the darker side of humanity. But Ryan believed in justice, in protecting the innocent, and in making his city a better place. It was a calling, a legacy from his father, who had also worn the badge. He wanted Lily to be proud of him, to know that her dad was one of the good guys. After the game, Ryan treated Lily to ice cream, her favorite, mint chocolate chip with extra sprinkles. They sat on a park bench, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Lily chattered about the game, her friends, and her upcoming school play. Ryan listened intently, soaking in every word. He knew these moments were precious. That night, after Lily was tucked into bed, Ryan sat in his living room, reviewing the details of a case. Darius Kemp, a known informant, had been found dead, and the circumstances were suspicious. Ryan had a gut feeling that something wasn't right. He shared his concerns with his friend and colleague, Jason Carter. "Something stinks, Jason," Ryan said, running a hand through his hair. "Kemp was supposed to meet with me tomorrow. He had information about a big drug operation." Jason nodded. "I hear you, Ryan, but be careful. Kemp wasn't exactly a saint. He had enemies." Ryan knew the risks, but he also knew that justice couldn't be selective. He had to follow the leads, no matter where they took him. The next day, Ryan's world shattered. He was arrested and charged with Kemp's murder. The evidence was damning. His fingerprints on the murder weapon, a witness who claimed to have seen him at the scene. It was a setup, a frame job. But who would want to frame him, and why? During the trial, the prosecution painted Ryan as a corrupt cop, a man who had crossed the line. Ryan vehemently denied the charges, but his pleas fell on deaf ears. The jury found him guilty, life in prison. The words echoed in his mind, a death knell to his old life. Before they took him away, Ryan was allowed a brief visit with Lily. She clung to him, her small body shaking with sobs. "Daddy, please, you didn't do it," she cried. Ryan held her tight, his heart breaking. "I know, sweetheart. I would never hurt anyone," he whispered in her ear. "Lily, listen to me. Someone is trying to hurt you. They're close. You have to be careful. Tell Aunt Sarah everything. Don't trust anyone else." Lily looked at him, her eyes wide with fear. "I'm scared, Daddy." Ryan kissed her forehead. "I promise you, Lily, I will find out who did this. I will come back for you. I swear it." That promise, whispered in the face of despair, was the only thing that kept him from completely falling apart. As the guards led him away, Ryan looked back at Lily. Her tearful face, a haunting image, burned into his memory. He knew he had to escape, not just for himself, but for Lily's safety. He had to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. His life, his freedom, meant nothing if Lily was in danger. Ryan's first weeks in prison were a blur of cold steel bars, harsh faces, and the gnawing ache of separation from Lily. He clung to the promise he made her, the image of her frightened eyes fueling his determination. He knew he couldn't stay here, not if Lily was in danger. He reached out to Jason, his loyal friend and former partner. He managed to get a message to him through a sympathetic guard, a man Ryan had once helped when his own son was sick. The message was simple: "I need your help. Lily is in danger. I was framed." Jason, though shocked by the news, never doubted Ryan's innocence. He knew the kind of man Ryan was: honest, dedicated, a loving father. He immediately started his own investigation, digging into the Kemp case, looking for any loose threads, any inconsistencies. Meanwhile, Ryan had to navigate the treacherous world of prison politics. He kept to himself, observing, learning. He knew he needed allies, people he could trust. He found an unlikely confidant in an older inmate, a man named Preacher with a quiet demeanor and a sharp mind. Preacher had seen it all in prison, and he recognized the desperation in Ryan's eyes. "You're different, Calloway," Preacher said one day, as they were working in the prison laundry. "You're not like the others. You've got something to fight for." Ryan hesitated, then confided in Preacher about Lily, about his fears. Preacher listened, his expression grave. Family is everything, he said. It's worth fighting for, but you can't do it alone. Preacher introduced Ryan to a few inmates who had connections on the outside, men who could help him. They were a motley crew, but they were loyal to Preacher, and they were willing to help Ryan. They understood the importance of family, the desperation of a father trying to protect his child. While Ryan was making plans for his escape, Jason was making progress on the outside. He discovered that Kemp had been involved in something much bigger than just a drug operation. He had stumbled upon evidence of widespread corruption within the Brighton Police Department, a network of officers involved in bribery, extortion, and even murder. And it seemed that Ryan had been getting too close to the truth. Jason also learned that Captain Greg Wallace, Ryan's superior, was deeply involved in the corruption. Wallace had been acting strangely in the weeks leading up to Kemp's murder, and he had been unusually eager to pin the crime on Ryan. Jason suspected that Wallace was the one who had framed Ryan, but he needed proof. He also discovered that a powerful and influential figure named Victor Langley was connected to the corrupt officers. Langley was a businessman with a reputation for ruthlessness, and he seemed to be pulling the strings behind the scenes. Jason knew that Langley was dangerous, but he was determined to expose him, no matter the risk. Back in prison, Ryan was growing more and more anxious. He hadn't heard from Jason in days, and he was worried that something had gone wrong. He knew that time was running out. Lily was still in danger, and he had to get to her. He had to escape. One night, under the cover of darkness, Ryan and his newfound allies put their plan into action. It was a risky operation, fraught with peril, but they were determined to succeed. They knew that their lives depended on it. And more importantly, Lily's life depended on it. The prison air crackled with tension. Ryan, his heart pounding against his ribs, moved silently through the shadows, guided by a wiry inmate named Fingers, a master of locks and alarms. Fingers had disabled the security cameras in their section, giving them a small window of opportunity. They reached the outer wall, where a rope ladder, smuggled in by one of Preacher's contacts, dangled precariously. Ryan climbed, his muscles burning, his breath ragged. He glanced back at the prison, a hulking monolith against the night sky, a symbol of his wrongful imprisonment. He vowed to return, not as an inmate, but as a free man, to expose the truth and bring down those who had framed him. On the other side of the wall, a beat-up sedan waited, driven by another inmate. Whisper, a man known for his driving skills and his discretion. Ryan jumped into the car, and Whisper sped away, disappearing into the maze of back roads. They drove to a safe house, a rundown apartment in a seedy part of town, where Jason was waiting. The reunion was brief and tense. "We don't have much time," Jason said. "Wallace is getting suspicious. He's put out an APB for you." Ryan nodded. "I know. We have to get to Lily." Jason explained what he had discovered about the corruption within the police department, about Wallace's involvement, and about Victor Langley. Ryan's blood ran cold. He knew that Langley was a dangerous man, a man who wouldn't hesitate to silence anyone who threatened his empire. "We need proof," Ryan said. "We need something that will tie Wallace and Langley to Kemp's murder and to the frame-up." Jason had been working on that too. He had managed to obtain a copy of Kemp's confidential informant file, which contained crucial information about Langley's operations. But the file was encrypted, and they needed someone who could crack it. That's where Hannah Rees came in. Hannah was a tech expert, a brilliant hacker with a reputation for being able to break into any system. Jason had contacted her, explained the situation, and she had agreed to help. They met Hannah at a secluded warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Hannah, a young woman with piercing blue eyes and a sharp wit, was already working on the encrypted file. "This is some heavy encryption," she said, tapping away at her keyboard. "But I'm getting there." While Hannah worked, Ryan and Jason discussed their next move. They knew they had to get to Lily, but they also knew that Wallace would be watching her. They needed a plan, a way to get to her without putting her in further danger. They decided to contact Sarah, Lily's aunt, the woman Ryan had told Lily to trust. Sarah was a nurse, a kind and compassionate woman who loved Lily dearly. They hoped that Sarah would be willing to help them. Jason contacted Sarah and explained the situation. Sarah was shocked by the news, but she believed Ryan. She had always suspected that something was wrong, that Ryan had been framed. She agreed to help them, but she was scared. She knew that Wallace was a powerful man, and she was afraid of what he might do. Ryan reassured her. "We'll protect you, Sarah," he said. "We won't let anything happen to you or Lily." Sarah agreed to bring Lily to a safe location, a remote cabin in the woods that belonged to her family. It was a risky move, but it was their only chance. As they prepared to leave, Hannah finally cracked the encryption. The file contained a list of names, dates, and locations, evidence of Langley's vast criminal network. It also revealed the motive for Kemp's murder. Kemp had discovered that Langley was involved in human trafficking, and he was about to expose him. Ryan now had the proof he needed to clear his name and bring down Langley and Wallace. But first, he had to save Lily. The drive to the cabin was agonizing for Ryan. Every mile felt like an eternity. He imagined Lily, scared and confused, wondering where he was. He gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, his jaw clenched. He had to get to her. He had to protect her. They arrived at the cabin late at night. It was a small, rustic structure nestled deep in the woods, far from the prying eyes of the city. Sarah was waiting for them on the porch, Lily asleep in her arms. The sight of his daughter filled Ryan with a mixture of relief and fear. He rushed to them, embracing Sarah and then taking Lily into his arms. She stirred in her sleep, her small hand reaching out to touch his face. He kissed her forehead, his heart aching with love. Sarah explained that Lily had been having nightmares, that she was still traumatized by the events of the past few weeks. Ryan knew he had to make things right, not just for himself, but for Lily. He had to give her back her father, her protector. They decided to stay at the cabin for the night. It was safer there, away from Wallace and Langley. Ryan stayed awake, watching over Lily as she slept, his eyes filled with love and determination. The next morning, they made plans to leave. They knew they couldn't stay at the cabin for long. Wallace would be looking for them. They decided to go to a small town near the Canadian border, where they had friends who could help them. As they were preparing to leave, they heard the sound of a car approaching. Ryan tensed, his hand instinctively reaching for the pistol he had managed to acquire. He knew it was Wallace. He had found them. Wallace and two of his officers stormed into the cabin, guns drawn. "Calloway," Wallace sneered. "It's over. You're going back to prison." Ryan stood his ground, Lily clinging to his leg. "You're not taking me anywhere, Wallace," he said. "I know what you did. I know about Kemp, about Langley." "I have proof," Wallace laughed. "Proof? You have nothing. It's your word against mine." A tense standoff ensued. Ryan knew he couldn't let Wallace take him. He had to protect Lily. He had to expose the truth. Suddenly, Lily spoke. "Daddy," she said, her voice trembling. "That man, he hurt me." She pointed at Wallace. "He came to my house. He told me that if I didn't say my daddy killed Mr. Kemp, he would hurt me." Wallace's face paled. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected Lily to speak up. Ryan felt a surge of anger, a protective rage he had never felt before. He lunged at Wallace, tackling him to the ground. A fierce struggle ensued. Ryan, fueled by his love for Lily, fought with a ferocity that surprised even himself. In the end, he managed to overpower Wallace, disarming him and holding him at gunpoint. The other two officers, seeing their captain subdued, surrendered. Ryan had won. He had saved Lily. But the fight was far from over. He still had to expose Langley and the rest of the corrupt officers. He had to bring them to justice. With Wallace in custody, Ryan knew he had a chance to dismantle Langley's operation. He contacted Jason, who had been working tirelessly to gather more evidence. They agreed to meet at Hannah's hideout, the secluded warehouse where she had cracked Kemp's encrypted file. When Ryan arrived, Hannah was waiting, her face grim. "Langley knows you're alive," she said. "He's put a bounty on your head. He's not going to let you get away with this." Ryan nodded. "I know, but we're close. We have the evidence. We just need to find a way to expose him." Hannah had been working on that too. She had discovered that Langley was laundering his money through a series of offshore accounts. She had also found evidence that he was involved in human trafficking, a horrific operation that was exploiting vulnerable people. "We need to go public," Ryan said. "We need to take this to the FBI." Jason agreed. "But we need to be careful. Langley has connections everywhere. We don't know who we can trust." They decided to contact a special agent named Sarah Chen, a woman Jason had worked with in the past. They knew she was honest and dedicated, and they trusted her to do the right thing. They met with Agent Chen at a secret location, a safe house provided by the FBI. They showed her the evidence they had gathered, the encrypted file, Wallace's confession, and Hannah's findings about Langley's operations. Agent Chen was shocked by the revelations. She had suspected that Langley was involved in something illegal, but she had never imagined the extent of his criminal empire. "We need to move quickly," she said. "Langley is dangerous. He won't hesitate to silence anyone who threatens him." Agent Chen immediately launched an investigation, working with a team of FBI agents to track down Langley and his associates. They raided Langley's offices, seizing his financial records and other evidence. They also rescued the victims of his human trafficking operation, providing them with safe shelter and support. Langley, realizing that he was about to be exposed, went into hiding. He knew that his empire was crumbling, and he was desperate to escape justice. Ryan, Jason, and Hannah worked closely with the FBI, providing them with information and helping them to track down Langley. They knew that they were putting themselves at risk, but they were determined to see justice done. After a tense and dangerous manhunt, Langley was finally apprehended. He was arrested and charged with a long list of crimes, including murder, corruption, money laundering, and human trafficking. The news of Langley's arrest spread quickly, and the city erupted in cheers. The corrupt officers were also arrested, their network dismantled. Justice had finally prevailed. Ryan was officially exonerated, his name cleared. He was reunited with Lily, who was overjoyed to have her father back. The ordeal had been traumatic for her, but she was resilient, and with Ryan's love and support, she was slowly healing. Ryan returned to the police force, but he was a changed man. He had seen the dark side of the system, the corruption that could fester within it. He was determined to make a difference, to root out the bad apples and restore the public's trust in the police. He knew that the fight for justice was never truly over, but he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. He had learned the true meaning of the badge, the weight of responsibility, the importance of integrity, and he knew that he would never again take his duty lightly. He would always fight for what was right, for the innocent, for his daughter. The aftermath of Langley's arrest left the city reeling. The depth of the corruption within the Brighton Police Department was shocking, and it shook public trust to its core. Ryan, despite being exonerated, felt a profound sense of disillusionment. The badge he wore, once a symbol of honor and protection, now felt tainted. He knew that rebuilding that trust would be a long and arduous process. He returned to his work, but his perspective had shifted. He was no longer just a cop, he was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest corners, justice could prevail. He approached each case with renewed dedication, determined to uphold the law and serve the community. He also focused on mending his relationship with Lily. The trauma she had endured had left scars, invisible wounds that needed time and patience to heal. He spent every free moment with her, listening to her, playing with her, simply being present. He enrolled her in therapy, hoping it would help her process what she had been through. One day, Lily asked him, "Daddy, are you going to catch the bad guys again?" Ryan smiled. "Yes, sweetheart," he said. "That's my job. But I promise, I'll always come home to you." He knew that promise was a heavy one, but he was determined to keep it. He couldn't change the past, but he could shape the future. He could be the father Lily deserved, a father who was both a protector and a source of unwavering love. He also worked to rebuild his relationships with his colleagues. He knew that not everyone in the department was corrupt. There were good cops, honest cops, who were just as shocked and disappointed as he was. He reached out to them, offering his support, working alongside them to restore integrity to the force. He found an ally in Jason, who had been promoted to detective after his crucial role in exposing Langley. They worked together on several cases, their bond strengthened by their shared experience. They were a team, dedicated to serving justice and protecting the innocent. Ryan also found himself drawn to Sarah, Lily's aunt. She had been a rock for Lily during the difficult times, and he appreciated her strength and compassion. They spent more time together, sharing meals, going for walks, talking about Lily. A quiet understanding developed between them, a shared sense of loss and healing. One evening, as Ryan was putting Lily to bed, she said, "Daddy, I'm not scared anymore." Ryan smiled. "I'm glad, sweetheart," he said. "I'll always be here to protect you." Lily hugged him tightly. "I know, Daddy," she said. "You're my hero." Ryan's heart swelled with love. He knew that he had a long way to go, but he was on the right path. He was rebuilding his life, his family, his career. He was healing. He also knew that the fight against corruption was never truly over. There would always be those who sought to exploit the system, who put their own greed and ambition above the needs of the community. But Ryan was ready. He had faced the darkness, and he had emerged stronger. He was a cop, a father, a survivor. And he would never stop fighting for what was right. Time moved forward, carrying with it the slow but steady rhythm of healing. Ryan's life had found a new equilibrium. The scars of the past remained, a reminder of the ordeal, but they no longer defined him. He had emerged from the darkness, stronger and more resolute. His relationship with Lily blossomed. He was no longer just her father. He was her confidant, her friend, her rock. He made sure to be present in her life, attending her school plays, cheering her on at her soccer games, listening to her dreams and fears. He wanted her to know that he was always there for her, no matter what. His bond with Sarah deepened. Their shared experience had forged a connection between them, a quiet understanding that transcended words. They found comfort in each other's company, sharing stories about Lily, reminiscing about Ryan's father, finding solace in their shared grief and their shared hope for the future. Ryan's career also flourished. He became a respected figure in the police department, a symbol of integrity and justice. He mentored young officers, sharing his experiences, instilling in them the importance of honesty and ethical conduct. He was no longer just a cop, he was a leader, an inspiration. He and Jason continued to work together, their partnership a force for good in the city. They tackled complex cases, their combined skills and experience proving invaluable. They were a team, a force to be reckoned with. One day, Ryan received a call from Agent Chen. She informed him that Victor Langley had been convicted on all charges and sentenced to life in prison. Justice had finally been served. Ryan felt a sense of closure. The man who had shattered his life, who had threatened his daughter, was finally behind bars. He knew that Langley would never be able to hurt anyone again. He shared the news with Lily and Sarah, and they celebrated together, a quiet moment of relief and gratitude. They had survived. They had overcome adversity, and they had emerged stronger. Ryan realized that he had been given a second chance. He had been given the opportunity to rebuild his life, to forge new relationships, to make a difference in the world, and he was determined to make the most of it. He continued to work as a police officer, but he also became involved in community outreach programs, working to improve relations between the police and the public. He wanted to bridge the gap, to build trust, to create a safer and more harmonious community. He also dedicated time to helping victims of crime, offering them support and guidance. He knew what it was like to be a victim, and he wanted to help others navigate the difficult journey of healing and recovery. One evening, as Ryan was putting Lily to bed, she asked him, "Daddy, are you happy?" Ryan smiled. "Yes, sweetheart," he said. "I am. I have you. I have Sarah. I have my work. I have everything I need." Lily hugged him tightly. "I love you, Daddy," she said. "I love you too, sweetheart," Ryan replied. He knew that life would continue to present challenges, but he was no longer afraid. He had faced the darkness, and he had found the light. He had learned the true meaning of courage, resilience, and love, and he knew that he could face anything, as long as he had Lily by his side. His life was a testament to the power of hope, the strength of family, and the enduring pursuit of justice. Years passed, and Ryan's life settled into a comfortable rhythm. He and Sarah had built a strong and loving relationship, a partnership founded on mutual respect and shared experiences. Lily had blossomed into a bright and articulate young woman, excelling in school and dreaming of a future in medicine. Ryan, now a seasoned detective, continued to serve the Brighton community, his dedication to justice unwavering. He had earned the respect of his colleagues and the trust of the public. He was a symbol of integrity, a beacon of hope in a world often shrouded in darkness. But the past, as it often does, had a way of resurfacing. A new case landed on Ryan's desk, a seemingly routine investigation into a series of burglaries. But as he delved deeper, he uncovered a connection to Victor Langley, a shadow from his past he thought he had left behind. It appeared that Langley, even from prison, was still pulling strings, orchestrating criminal activities through his network of associates. The realization sent a chill down Ryan's spine. He had thought he had put that chapter of his life behind him, but it seemed Langley's influence still lingered, a venomous serpent coiled in the shadows. He shared his concerns with Jason, who was now a lieutenant in the department. Jason, ever the pragmatist, cautioned Ryan against jumping to conclusions. "We need solid evidence, Ryan," he said. "We can't afford to make any mistakes." Ryan knew Jason was right, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Langley was involved. He had a gut feeling, a sense of unease that gnawed at him. He decided to pursue the investigation, determined to uncover the truth, no matter where it led. As he dug deeper, he discovered that Langley's associates were involved in more than just burglaries. They were involved in drug trafficking, extortion, and even murder. The scope of their criminal activities was staggering. Ryan realized that Langley's network was still a powerful force, a threat to the safety and well-being of the community. He knew he had to stop them, but he also knew that it would be a dangerous undertaking. He shared his findings with Agent Chen, who was now a high-ranking official in the FBI. She was grateful for his information and assured him that the FBI would launch an investigation. But Ryan knew that time was of the essence. Langley's associates were dangerous, and they wouldn't hesitate to silence anyone who threatened their operation. He decided to take matters into his own hands, working alongside Jason to gather more evidence, to identify the key players in Langley's network. He knew he was walking a dangerous path, that he was putting himself and his family at risk, but he couldn't stand by and watch as Langley's criminal empire continued to wreak havoc on the community. He had to act. He had to protect the innocent. He had to bring Langley and his associates to justice once and for all. The weight of responsibility, the weight of the badge, rested heavily on his shoulders. He knew he had to carry it, no matter the cost. Ryan's investigation into Langley's resurfaced network led him down a rabbit hole of deceit and danger. He and Jason worked tirelessly, following leads, interviewing witnesses, piecing together the intricate puzzle of Langley's operations. They discovered that Langley had cultivated new alliances within the criminal underworld, forging partnerships with ruthless gangs and corrupt officials. His influence extended far beyond the prison walls, casting a long shadow over the city. Ryan knew that Langley was playing a dangerous game, and he was determined to expose him, to dismantle his network once and for all. But Langley was a master manipulator, a puppet master pulling the strings from behind the scenes. He had eyes and ears everywhere, and he was always one step ahead. Ryan and Jason faced numerous obstacles, encountering resistance at every turn. Witnesses were intimidated into silence, evidence disappeared, and their efforts were constantly thwarted. It was clear that Langley had powerful allies, individuals who were willing to protect him at all costs. Ryan felt a growing sense of frustration. He knew that time was running out, that Langley's network was growing stronger, more entrenched. He had to act quickly, but he also had to be careful. One wrong move could jeopardize the entire investigation, and it could put his family in danger. He confided in Sarah, sharing his concerns, his fears. Sarah, ever the supportive partner, listened patiently, offering words of encouragement. "You're doing the right thing, Ryan," she said. "You're fighting for justice. Don't let fear hold you back." Her words gave Ryan strength. He knew that he couldn't give up, that he had to keep fighting, not just for himself, but for Lily, for Sarah, for the entire community. He and Jason decided to change their tactics. They realized that they couldn't go after Langley directly. He was too well protected. They had to target his associates, the individuals who were carrying out his orders. They focused their attention on a notorious gangster known as Razor, a ruthless criminal who was one of Langley's key lieutenants. They knew that if they could bring down Razor, they could weaken Langley's network, disrupt his operations. They launched a covert operation. Working with a team of trusted officers to gather evidence against Razor, they tracked his movements, monitored his communications, and infiltrated his organization. The operation was risky, fraught with danger. They knew that Razor was a violent and unpredictable man, and they were constantly looking over their shoulders, aware that they could be discovered at any moment. But they pressed on, determined to bring Razor to justice. They knew that the fate of the city, the safety of their families, depended on it. After weeks of careful planning and meticulous execution, they finally had enough evidence to move against Razor. They launched a raid on his headquarters, catching him and his associates by surprise. A fierce firefight ensued, but in the end, they managed to apprehend Razor and seize a wealth of evidence, including financial records, weapons, and drugs. With Razor in custody, they had dealt a significant blow to Langley's network, but they knew that Langley was still out there, pulling the strings. The fight was far from over. They had won a battle, but the war was still raging. They had to keep fighting. They had to keep pushing, until Langley was brought to justice once and for all. Razor's capture provided a crucial opening in Langley's network. The evidence seized from his headquarters revealed a complex web of connections, linking Langley to corrupt officials, international drug cartels, and even a network of human traffickers. The scope of Langley's criminal enterprise was far greater than Ryan had ever imagined. He and Jason worked tirelessly with Agent Chen and the FBI, following the leads uncovered in Razor's files. They discovered that Langley had been using his influence and resources to manipulate the justice system, bribing judges, intimidating witnesses, and obstructing investigations. He had built a fortress of corruption around himself, making it nearly impossible to penetrate. Ryan felt a surge of anger. Langley's actions were a betrayal of everything he stood for, a mockery of the law he had sworn to uphold. He was determined to bring Langley down, to expose his crimes and dismantle his empire, no matter the cost. The investigation led them to a series of shell corporations, offshore accounts, and hidden properties. Langley had been laundering his money through these channels, concealing his illicit activities and amassing a fortune. The trail was complex and convoluted, designed to obscure the truth and protect Langley from prosecution. Ryan and Jason followed the money trail, tracing it across continents, navigating a maze of international banking regulations and legal loopholes. They worked with financial experts and forensic accountants, piecing together the intricate puzzle of Langley's financial empire. As they got closer to the truth, the danger intensified. Langley's associates became more aggressive, resorting to threats, intimidation, and even violence. Ryan and Jason knew they were being watched, that their every move was being monitored. They took precautions, increasing security at their homes, being careful about their movements. They knew that Langley was desperate, that he would stop at nothing to protect his empire. One night, Ryan received a threatening phone call. A voice on the other end of the line warned him to back off, to stop interfering in Langley's affairs. "You're playing a dangerous game, Calloway," the voice said. "You don't want to see what happens when you cross Victor Langley." Ryan refused to be intimidated. He knew that he was on the right track, that he was close to exposing Langley's crimes. He wouldn't back down, he wouldn't give up. He had come too far, he had sacrificed too much. He shared the details of the call with Agent Chen, who assured him that the FBI was taking the threats seriously. She increased security for Ryan and his family, and she vowed to bring Langley to justice. The investigation continued, and Ryan and Jason found themselves facing increasing pressure. Langley's associates were closing in, trying to silence them, to stop them from uncovering the truth. But Ryan and Jason refused to be deterred. They were driven by a sense of duty, a commitment to justice, and a desire to protect their community. They knew that they were fighting a powerful and dangerous enemy, but they were determined to prevail. They had come too far to turn back now. The serpent's coil was tightening, but they were ready to strike. The evidence against Langley mounted, a mountain of incriminating data that exposed his vast criminal network. Ryan and Jason, working in close coordination with Agent Chen and the FBI, meticulously documented Langley's activities, tracing his money laundering schemes, uncovering his connections to drug cartels, and exposing his involvement in human trafficking. The investigation culminated in a series of coordinated raids, targeting Langley's key associates and seizing his assets. Properties were searched, bank accounts frozen, and key figures in Langley's organization were apprehended. The net was closing in. Langley, realizing that his empire was crumbling, made a desperate attempt to flee the country. He chartered a private jet and planned to escape to a remote island where he had stashed a fortune in cash and other valuables. But Ryan and Jason, anticipating his move, alerted the authorities. Airports were notified, border crossings were monitored, and Langley's jet was tracked. As the plane prepared for takeoff, It was intercepted by FBI agents. Langley was apprehended, his escape thwarted. He was brought back to Brighton, where he faced a long list of charges, including murder, corruption, money laundering, drug trafficking, and human trafficking. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and his carefully constructed fortress of corruption was finally crumbling. The trial was a media sensation, a spectacle that captivated the nation. The public watched with rapt attention as the details of Langley's crimes were revealed, as the extent of his corruption was exposed. Ryan and Jason testified, recounting their investigation, presenting the evidence they had painstakingly gathered. Langley, defiant to the end, maintained his innocence, claiming that he was a victim of a conspiracy, that he had been framed by his enemies, but his denials fell on deaf ears. The evidence was too strong, too compelling. After weeks of testimony and deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Guilty on all counts, Langley was sentenced to life in prison, his reign of terror finally over. Ryan felt a sense of relief, a weight lifted from his shoulders. He had brought Langley to justice. He had dismantled his criminal empire, and he had protected his community. He had honored the badge, he had upheld the law, and he had served justice. But he knew that the fight against corruption was never truly over. There would always be those who sought to exploit the system, who put their own greed and ambition above the needs of the community. He knew that he had to remain vigilant, that he had to continue to fight for what was right. He returned to his work, his dedication to justice renewed. He was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming odds, good could prevail. He was a cop, a father, a survivor, and he would never stop fighting for what was right. The years that followed Langley's downfall brought a sense of peace and stability to Ryan's life. The city of Brighton slowly began to heal, the wounds of corruption gradually closing. The police department underwent significant reforms, implementing stricter ethical guidelines and increasing accountability. Public trust in law enforcement, though still fragile, began to rebuild. Ryan continued to serve the community, his dedication to justice unwavering. He became a mentor to young officers, sharing his experiences, instilling in them the importance of integrity and ethical conduct. He was a role model, a symbol of what a police officer should be. His relationship with Sarah blossomed, their bond deepening with each passing year. They were partners in life, sharing joys and sorrows, supporting each other through thick and thin. Their home was filled with love and laughter, a sanctuary from the outside world. Lily grew into a remarkable young woman, intelligent, compassionate, and fiercely independent. She pursued her dream of becoming a doctor, driven by a desire to help others, to make a difference in the world. Ryan was immensely proud of her, watching her blossom into the woman she was meant to be. One day, Ryan received a prestigious award for his service to the community, recognizing his courage, his integrity, and his unwavering commitment to justice. He accepted the award with humility, acknowledging the contributions of his colleagues, his family, and the community he served. In his acceptance speech, he spoke about the importance of trust, the need for accountability, and the enduring pursuit of justice. He reminded the audience that the fight against corruption was never truly over, that it required constant vigilance, unwavering dedication, and a commitment to ethical conduct. He also spoke about the importance of family, the love and support that had sustained him through difficult times. He thanked Sarah and Lily for their unwavering love and support, acknowledging their role in his success. As he looked out at the audience, he saw Lily and Sarah smiling proudly, their eyes filled with love and admiration. He knew that he had made the right choices, that he had lived his life with integrity and purpose. Years later, as Ryan approached retirement, he reflected on his career, on the challenges he had faced, the battles he had fought, and the victories he had won. He had seen the dark side of humanity, the corruption and greed that could fester within the system. But he had also witnessed the resilience of the human spirit, the power of hope, and the enduring pursuit of justice. He had learned the true meaning of the badge, the weight of responsibility, the importance of integrity. He had learned that justice was not always swift, that it required patience, perseverance, and unwavering dedication. But he had also learned that justice, in the end, always prevailed. As he closed this chapter of his life, he knew that he had left a legacy of justice, a testament to his commitment to serving the community and protecting the innocent. He had made a difference, he had made his city a better place, and he had honored the badge he wore. He had lived a life of purpose, a life of integrity, a life of service. And he knew that he had made his father proud.